Emmanuel Macron ci ha definiti vomitevoli, cinici, irresponsabili. E qui la stampa italiana a dire, hai visto che ha detto Macron, che siamo irresponsabili.
Today, we're zeroing in on a major political reset, the meeting between Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and French President Emmanuel Macron, held in Rome in June 2025. This was more than a diplomatic handshake. It could redefine how Europe thinks about sovereignty, defense, industrial power, and geopolitical strategy. Welcome back to Subscribe to EU Politics, where we dig deep into the most powerful movements shaping Europe's future. This meeting comes at a particularly sensitive time, just weeks before tensions had flared between Rome and Paris over Ukraine, trade, and Europe's transatlantic orientation. Reports suggested fundamental disagreements, but on June 3rd, 2025, Meloni welcomed Macron to the Palazzo Chigi for more than 3 hours of discussion, followed by a working dinner. The optics were powerful: smiles, serious faces, and a message that Europe's big founding powers want to lead together again. So what did they talk about, and why does it matter for the EU? First and foremost, Ukraine was at the heart of their agenda. Both leaders reaffirmed unwavering and unequivocal support for Kyiv. They emphasized not just short-term relief, but a longer-term vision. Europe must invest in its defense capabilities and the industrial technological base that backs those capabilities. That means more funding for defense, but also work on weapons, infrastructure, and innovation. Meloni and Macron also stressed their ambition for a more strategically sovereign Europe. In the joint communiqué, they pledged to deepen coordination on the transatlantic relationship, but also invest more in European tech and manufacturing. They singled out key sectors: automotive, steel, artificial intelligence, nuclear energy, and even space. For them, Europe must not just defend its values, it must produce the future. On industrial competitiveness, they didn't mince words. Meloni said the meeting was very useful to strengthen dialogue and coordination on strong convergence for investment, regulation, and growth. They want to mobilize both public and private capital, not just relying on EU grants, but also on joint ventures, shared risk, and a European industrial strategy that can compete globally. Security was another major pillar. Beyond Ukraine, they discussed broader geopolitical risks, from the Middle East to North Africa and Libya. Their goal: a Europe that is not just reactive, but proactively shaping global stability. And part of that is building a European defense industrial base capable of sustaining long-term investment in technology, autonomy, and readiness. There were also important points about migration and enlargement. Meloni and Macron agreed to coordinate more closely on migration flows, border management, and irregular migration. They didn't just frame it as a humanitarian issue. For them, migration is part of strategic Europe. Economic security, political identity, and geopolitical leverage all meet at these borders. But, and this is critical, Meloni did not give up her core principles. She made clear that her support for European integration comes with strong reservations. National sovereignty matters. She doesn't want a Europe that erases her country's voice. In her words, the Europe of tomorrow must protect national autonomy while building shared power. Macron, for his part, seems to be accepting this reality. He knows that to maintain a credible and united Europe, he needs to work with leaders like Meloni, leaders who bring political weight and domestic legitimacy. Their long dinner wasn't symbolic. Sources say they set a date for their next bilateral summit in France in early 2026, a strong signal that this is not just a one-off détente. Economically, their vision is bold. They talked about regulatory simplification, but also mass investment in future-facing sectors. They want to mobilize European funds for big bets: AI, green energy, nuclear, and space. This is not only about boosting competitiveness, it's about creating an industrial ecosystem where Europe can lead rather than follow. Defense, in this context, becomes more than military spending. For Meloni and Macron, it's strategic infrastructure, defense research, dual-use tech, manufacturing, and long-term capacity building. And this ties into Readiness 2030, the EU's broader defense plan. While Meloni has in the past criticized some EU defense proposals, her engagement with Macron suggests she sees value in a smart, coordinated European military-industrial base as long as national control is not completely surrendered. Another layer: economic security. Meloni and Macron emphasize that in a more volatile world, economic sovereignty matters as much as military ones. Their Italian-French push is in part about ensuring that Europe is not left vulnerable not just to geopolitical threats, but to supply chain shocks, energy crises, and technological blackmail. Their reset also carries domestic political weight. Meloni, who leads a more national conservative government, is signalling to her base that she's not sell-out. She will protect Italy's sovereignty while engaging strategically Macron, whose centrist position has been tested by economic and geopolitical uncertainty, is showing that he can bring even skeptical partners into a shared European project. Still, the risks are huge. If this cooperation breaks down, tensions over Ukraine, migration and defence could flare again. Meloni's domestic supporters might reject any deal they see as conceding too much. Macron's vision of a sovereign Europe could be undermined if key partners block real industrial or military integration. And on a broader level, if national interests eclipse shared European goals, the stability they supposedly want to build could fracture. So what's the big takeaway? There are three major points. This is a strategic reset, not just friendship, but a coordinated push for a more capable, sovereign Europe. Meloni and Macron are playing the long game, building economic, industrial, and defence capacity that binds their countries more tightly within Europe's future architecture. Their success, or failure, will influence the entire EU. How the bloc funds defence, supports Ukraine, regulates industry, and manages migration could be reshaped by what happens in Rome and in Paris over the coming months. If you want to stay at the forefront of these tectonic shifts in European politics, make sure to subscribe to EU Politics, because we are tracking every twist, turn, and declaration that could redefine the future of Europe. Thank you for watching. Leave your thoughts below. Do you think Meloni and Macron's reset is a genuine turning point, or a fragile truce waiting to break? As Europe watches closely, the dynamic between Giorgia Meloni and Emmanuel Macron has become more than a diplomatic disagreement. It has turned into a symbolic clash about the future shape of the European Union. And while both leaders publicly speak about defending European interests, the reality is that their definitions of European interests couldn't be more different. Macron sees Europe as something that must be continuously integrated, strengthened by deeper policy alignment and greater central authority in Brussels. Meloni, on the other hand, believes that too much central power has already eroded national sovereignty, leaving ordinary citizens disconnected from decisions that directly impact their lives. This ongoing dispute has created a new tension that is not just ideological, it's personal. Macron feels that Meloni's growing influence within the EU is pulling Europe away from the direction he has been trying to push for years. Meanwhile, Meloni believes that Macron represents an outdated political class that is no longer in touch with the anxieties of modern Europeans. And this clash isn't happening behind closed doors, it is unfolding publicly, in speeches, in press conferences, and even in comments made during international visits. What makes this moment especially important is that Europe is not politically calm right now. With economic challenges, rising migration pressures, and deep disagreements about global alliances, the EU is entering a period where leadership disagreements can shape the continent's next decade. When Meloni criticizes Macron's approach to migration, she's not just arguing with a fellow leader, she's laying out a new political roadmap that appeals to millions of voters across Europe who feel the old system isn't working anymore. And Macron knows this. He knows that Meloni's popularity, not just in Italy but across Europe, represents a real challenge to the political direction France has long championed. For decades, France and Germany shaped EU politics. But now, with Italy gaining influence and Meloni becoming a major political force, Macron is fighting not only policy disagreements, but also the possibility of losing France's traditional position of leadership. This is why the tension between these two leaders is becoming one of the most important political stories inside the EU. It's not just about migration policy or economic models, it's about who will shape Europe's identity in the coming years. And as both leaders prepare for upcoming European Council meetings, every statement, every negotiation, and every disagreement becomes a signal to the rest of Europe. The balance of power is shifting. So as viewers of this channel, don't forget to subscribe to EU Politics, because the story unfolding now will define the European political landscape for years. Whether Europe moves toward Macron's integrated vision or Meloni's sovereignty-focused model depends on the political battles happening right now, and you deserve to know how these debates, speeches and decisions are shaping the future of the EU. So stay informed, stay engaged, and make sure you never miss an update.